about SS7 and telecommunication hacking. Now I put back my leather jacket and I will tell you about nasty things. So here, thank you very much. I must say this has been great conference. And you know, all the conferences are not as great as this one here, with the spirit of the people and the warm welcome and the nice people I've been meeting all the time. I'm like, why aren't there a hack lab in this town, or actually in this country? Because that's definitely one thing that I could expect, given the nice people and the good connection between the guys. So, okay, why? I don't know, but maybe I'll be pointing at elements that may be related to what we do in France and what we had as a situation and what led to our creation of some hackerspace. So first, what is hack labs or hackerspace? Well, it's autonomous spaces that basically mix code and technical things and hardware and cultural things. So it's about a place which is about free mind and free thinking and free project, free doing. Usually it's something that is not the secret thing in a bunker in a basement. I used the wrong word here because actually our hackerspace is inside a basement. But the thing is, we try to make it as social and open to everybody as we can. So our examples and inspiration before were things like the Chaos Computer Club in France and Chaos Computer Club in Germany, and C-Base in Germany, and the MetaLab, for example, in Vienna. And all these were interesting because they provided us patterns of functioning. That means ways to organize things so that there wouldn't be some kind of administration running at the place, but much more like a network as what we live on the internet, to have the same thing but in a physical place. Of course, what we do there is mostly related to open source stuff and practical hacking, reverse engineering things, breaking things. But it's not only about that. It's about things that are actually going a bit further than just technological hacking. So what's about hacker culture? I guess there are a few hacker groups, and there were a lot of hacker groups in Argentina. There's lots of hacker groups everywhere. And it has evolved from a situation where law enforcement considered hacking as an illegal thing to understand more the original way of hacking is being maybe inquisitive about technology and creative with it. And of course it creates a lot of culture. Hacker magazines which bring research into the public domain and basically helps collaboration, sharing, and growing the skid kiddies into exploit writers, and exploit writers into researchers, and researcher into, what's the next? I don't know. But guess what? There's a strong relationship between actually these hackers and generation of hackers and the companies and products that are out there helping the people get secure and actually get communication. So definitely you can point a relationship between Steve Jobs and Wozniak and Apple, well, between Blue Box and Apple computers. You can point a strong relationship maybe here. Do you have any kind of ideas about relationship in maybe your country or even in South America in general between hacker groups and companies? I'm sure you have. The thing is, of course, this is what we want to have, is to continue having better and more creativity in a more open way, and to make people understand that what we are about is changing society and making society evolve, even if sometimes we take shortcuts and we show things that some other people would prefer to hide. And if they have to make it illegal, well, so that the information doesn't get in the public, they will try to do it. So here we are really speaking about a confrontation about revolutionary power against established powers. Now, I'm not going to be citing Che Guevara and to be about, yeah, revolution tomorrow. No, that's not the point. The point is, society is naturally something that installs itself in fixed and crystallized social organization. And our understanding of technology and the wonders that technology can do can help us change crystallized part of the society into making it a better society, one that you would have loved to live in when you were a kid, and one that you would love your kid to live into. So the thing is, by doing simple projects and things that are very practical, which has a social impact, you're actually doing things that before were only done by thinkers who would think about new organization and leave the rest to other people to implement. Now we have to go back into a place where nobody will do it for you. That means that if you think about the romantic hacker, that there are activists somewhere that are doing the revolutionary work in order to change society, it's not existing. There's no Robin Hood robbing the banks and giving that to poor people. Oh wait, that happened in Mexico and Spain, right? Okay, but saying this is too easy. It's too easy to say, oh, there are other people who are changing society. I can go on and make money, or I can go on and just enjoy life. Well, it's something that we can, all of us do. And actually, it can have a great impact on you. While it's most of the time you're watching TV or living your life, and a lot of time it's very depressing. It's very depressing to see that actually you're bearing and just receiving things, and you're like, once again French, what can I do? And the thing is, by getting together with a set of powerful people that don't think the way you think, because all of us think in a different way, well, you'll go in projects where you're like, oh, I'd love to do this, but I only know how to code, and I don't know how to do the hardware part. And the other guy will like, oh, you know how to code? Because I don't. Because the hardware part is easy. So actually, things that are interesting in hackerspaces is that projects that would take you maybe 6 months to realize are done in one evening. In one evening, you're like, hey, but it's working. And then that's the interesting part of it. We can do stuff. So TempLab is a hackerspace in Paris. It's the first hackerspace in Paris, and we had a big legacy. A big legacy because there was previous hacker clubs in France, and the previous one had been created by the secret services of France. So they created a fake hacker club called Chaos Computer Club of France that had no relationship with the Chaos Computer Club of Germany. And basically what happened in this hackerspace, that they were collecting intelligence and making people, like young hackers, work on illegal things that they could later blame on the hacker, saying, oh no, DST, the secret service, has nothing to do with it. It's only this hacker, and we are so good at our job that we know his address. Yes, right, they recruited him, trained him, and then told him where to attack, and then they go and arrest him and put him in jail and blah, blah, blah. Well, that was our legacy, was that. So we had to fight against this image, which was as much local in France. The French guys didn't trust each other. They were like, oh, what do I know? You're not part of the security service. And internationally, the people like CCC in Berlin were like, French hackers? Yeah, right. So that was a bit of a difficult situation. There had been previous spaces, such as Crass and Print, which were pretty much like hackerspace, but too bad they were not in big cities, and they were not working anymore, or they were not open to big hacker projects. So where we are is in a very challenged zone. It's in Vitry-sur-Seine, it's not exactly in Paris. So we're between a socially very hard neighborhood, something like maybe the things around La Boca in Buenos Aires, but maybe a different form of it. And another side of it is a pharmaceutical industry. So it's really a really bad environment because it's heavily polluted. You know, the company who is doing pharmaceuticals is called Sanofi Aventis, and their global operation mode is making people die locally in order to heal globally. So that's the kind of thing that we had to support. Oh, now we have created a little project which is called Sanobot. It's Sanofi Bot. So it's a chemical pollution sensor, and you can go on Twitter, so twitter.com/Sanobot, and each time Sanofi Aventis is polluting, Sanobot is saying, well, Sanofi is polluting with that kind of readings and this kind of stuff. So it's a bit of a challenging area, not the perfect one, but at least we could have it for free. So we were like, okay, let's put technology where you don't expect it. Let's bring technology to some people who are in a socially challenged area where something like 2 years ago, a guy was not happy that his girlfriend didn't want to go out with him anymore, just put gasoline on her and burned her. So this is the kind of environment I'm talking about, very charming and socially aware. So we had to bring something new. The idea was to tell people, hey, come to the hackerspace, come to the temp lab, it's open, it's for you, you can do stuff there. But do not just come. Come, learn, and go back wherever you came from to create a new space there. Because you're not only a visitor, you're now an ambassador of what openness can bring to people. Now, the thing is, when you're doing that, you can't at the same time be hacking in NASA. Because it's too easy to come in, see that you're doing illegal stuff, and just pull the plug, cut the stuff, and say, okay, this hackerspace doesn't work anymore. It was temporary because we believe that anything crystallizes. So anything is going to go from a fixed organization, from a loose organization into a fixed organization. And everything is about creating pyramids, where there's one person at the top of it. So by calling that the temp lab, we would say it's only temporary, it's going to die. So already it was a kind of filter where a lot of people would come, you know, just to get installed and get power and then get information, would say, well, what's the point of going in something that is going to die anyway? So plenty of guys would not come naturally because it was not their interest. And one last very important thing is to have it independent. That means that there's no one who has an agenda who is going to tell basically people to do things and do that in order for them to use the manpower freely and with no money exchange of other people. The point was having something that was independent of political power, of company or corporations power, of lobbying powers. So to get just a space open for people. So yeah, that's abstract stuff. Now, maybe what is interesting is really the projects. So we just do some projects which are basically reclaiming our reality, saying this is my reality, this is my life, and as far as I know I won't have to, so let's have impact right now and do stuff that I like. So basically what we did is go ahead and without justification or any kind of I don't know this, I should not touch it, we just went for some project. So first project was when you open a hackerspace, the first thing that you really want to do is make a party. Because it's all about social contact, and actually, it very often, the skilled people are often the nice people. So very often when you meet some people who are really smart and know things, he's also a cool person. Why is that? Well, I have some maybe ideas about it. Maybe when you're open to people and nice to people, you're more open to new ideas, and new ideas are what makes you mutate and evolve. But then it was a hard thing to get into touch if you don't have some kind of social facilitators. So we went to go shopping for beers. And the thing is, next to the hackerspace there's nothing. So we went to some kind of supermarket far away. And well, supermarkets are one extension of the polite society. Because of a police state is happening actually in your supermarket in a way that when you go to party and go to bring back with a shopping cart full of beer, actually the shopping cart blocks, the wheels are stopped at the exit of the parking lot. Have you ever seen this? No, never? Did someone ever experience this? Yeah, one person. And where was that? In England. So usually what happens is that in the wheels of your shopping cart, there's little servo motors with a radio receptor. It's a very low frequency receptor that will be triggered by little lines like this in the ground, where there's only a wire which distributes some kind of very low frequency field, something like, in this case, 8.7 kilohertz radio signal. So when I saw that, I was like, wow, this is great, my shopping cart is blocked and I cannot carry the beers. But if it can do that to me, I can do the same to it. So what we did is, only with two guys, me and another guy, and very few technical tools, we went in and started to analyze the radio field with only your audio input on your laptop. Because you know that 8.7 kilohertz is below the 22 kilohertz, so you just convert, basically, with a little coil this into some kind of mini jack, and you are recording what the radio field is transmitting. And what we found out was actually a little way to do it in hardware and reproduce this frequency. But we were like, maybe there's a better way. And we actually did a little thing that I'm going to show you. It's here. It's actually, oops, sorry. So you see here, the wheel is really, I'm going to put it back. Here you see that it's a normal shopping cart, and the wheel will be turning quite normally. And what we found out is that if you inject some kind of frequency in the speaker, and the speaker is a coil with a membrane, the coil will actually produce parasites. And actually these parasites can be made to be exactly the 8.7 frequency with exactly the binary coding. And you see that now the wheel is not turning anymore because basically it's blocked. The servo motors receive the parasites of the coil from your mobile phone playing an MP3 file. And these parasites are exactly the frequency to trigger the lock. So we take now another phone with another MP3 file, and which has the unlock, basically unlock music. And now it's turning very well. So, of course, this wouldn't be something very legal to do that. So, actually, what we want to do here is a personal security system, so that you can secure your shopping cart while in the supermarket. When you forgot about the salt at the other end, so you secure your shopping cart by putting this kind of little music and putting it next to the wheels, and then you can safely go there, get the salt, because now your shopping cart can't be stolen. So we ask people not to use this on the 23rd of November for the Anti-Consumerism Day, because it will be highly illegal to actually massively block all the shopping carts in the shopping centers. All right, never on the 23rd of November. Carito. Okay. A caddy for us was a very nice name, and we decided to create a music group with two songs. One song is Lock, and another song is called Unlock. And of course, when we saw that, we were like, oh, it's a bit like TV Be Gone, so it's going to be, our album will be Consumer Be Gone. And as a name for the group, we are like, what about Caddy? Oh, what about Al-Caddy? And then Al-Caddy, which is no relationship to a terrorist group, was born. You can download that freely from the internet on the Templab website. So in the same kind of ideas, we thought that it was really good to do recycling. So after Christmas, we started recycling some kind of, some kind of little Christmas decoration in order to enhance our perception of security. So when you do that, you actually show to a lot of people how security is prevalent into their life. And then the society divides into two parts. There are people who are rolling on the floor laughing and looking at all the security cameras in the metro in Paris, which are nicely decorated with little Christmas decoration. So you see that there's tens of them everywhere, and before you didn't pay attention. And there's the other part of the society that goes, oh my God, there are terrorists planning a new attack on the security cameras. Right. We have a few other projects, and maybe some of you know about Monsanto Roundup. You know about Roundup? And just also for weeds. They make soybeans resistant to Roundup, but before Roundup you put Roundup like it's a weed killer, so it will kill any kind of weed. And well, there's something about weed killer is that before Roundup it was sodium chlorate, and sodium chlorate is basically a basic component for any kind of artisanal bomb. So sodium chlorate is something that if you mix with a very common and substance that I won't cite here, it makes a bomb. It's very powerful. My grandfather used to blow the trees out of the fields with this kind of mix. So the thing is, airlines have the liability to ensure security. And in order to ensure security, what we have is chemical sensors that will detect traces of sodium chlorate. So if you have traces of sodium chlorate, which will happen to you whatever precaution you take if you manipulate some kind of sodium chlorate, so the airline company is testing your luggage and will tell you or ask you at the counter or at the check at the boarding, oh sorry sir, we have a problem, and please follow us to the secondary examination room, and then you don't take the flight because they fear too much about you having bombs. So even if you are taking out the weeds out of your garden, you're not going to board on this plane. So what we have a funny situation in France. We used to be a very nice, social, loving country, and now we have a situation where illegal immigrants are abducted from the street by policemen blocking both ends of the street, and other policemen go in the street and actually ask the identification of everybody and take the people who don't have their identification in administrative retention center who are really present, but they are not called like that. And then some cops come to the administration retention center and take these people back into their country, even if they've been living for 25 years in France. Right? Even if they were paying their taxes, right? Even if they have a child in the country. So we're talking about things that are not very nice. And on top of that, policemen who accompany 2 policemen per each person who is sent back into their country is actually, the policemen are getting air miles. So every 5 trips to Nigeria, they can go to the Caribbean for free. So we think there's something kind of broken in this kind of behavior, especially since the last kind of blocking streets and abducting people from the street was done in 1940s and 41 when French were collaborating with the Nazis. So rings a bell, it's not really good. So we thought about round trip. What is round trip? Well, round trip is a deodorant with traces of sodium chlorate. So it's not bad for the body. It has been tested and on humans ourselves, not on animals. And what it does, it gives traces of sodium chlorate on whatever you touch. And basically what is happening is that you end up going to the airport and they test you and they find this, and sorry sir, you cannot board this plane, please you'll take the next. And the next one is probably, sorry sir, you can't board. What happens is that if an immigrant is basically, or we call prefer to call them migrants, is basically detained in a retention center and use round-trip deodorant. Well, basically, he'll go to the airline, and the airline say to the policeman, sorry, sir, but we cannot accept this person on board, and then go back to the retention center, which gives more time to make appeal for his case so that he can stay in France with his family. Well, that's another kind of hacking, let's say. Then, okay, we don't only do stupid stuff. We actually have real hacking projects. So one is about Hostile WRT, which is a firmware for Phonera 2, typically. So it's about basically having an embedded automated Wi-Fi hacking platform into these little embeddable things. And I have one really great picture that I want to show you. I'm going to show that to you after I explain. It's simple, but actually it's quite some work to do it industrialized. That means reliably. And to implement that, we basically used a lot of different techniques which can specialize, for example, the dictionaries based on the SSIDs it sees. So for example, here I've been compiling the kind of SSIDs and BSSIDs that you see in Argentina, so that it's a Spanish dictionary that is being used here, and all these kind of things in order to speed up brute forcing and cracking. The goal of it is actually to be able to deploy mesh networks very quickly. So basically you deploy these boxes and you have basically access to your friends who forgot to give you the key to their network. Well, right. It's used only for security purposes, of course, and better connection. So it's very well stated in the ULE, in the end user's license agreement. And another thing is, it's helpful to prove to French government that when they try to make people responsible for their own security, it's very interesting because themselves, as a government, with IT department, are not even able to ensure that. So they're putting pressure on the public to secure things only for the lobby of the music industry. You maybe heard about this Adobe law, which is against downloading. Well, we're trying to prove them that it's maybe something they require from public, which is not really doable. Let me try to find this little picture. I didn't remember about this, but yeah, that's something that you definitely want to see, if I may. Okay, it's this one. Yeah, here it is. So here you see a very nice, well, the thing is, this looks really basically what you have here is something that you never want to open, and the fool who do is going to actually have a real security case on his hands. So we're definitely dealing with this kind of little projects. Well, I think another project, and I think I'll start to end up with this, is eGPL. eGPL is about basically a project with license. All of us, nearly all of us, use Creative Commons GPL, basically, yeah. General public license. Well, guess what? I was really astonished to understand and to learn that actually MySQL was being used by this weird ministry in charge of getting migrants out of France in order to optimize the blocking of the streets and abduction of people off the street because they don't have papers. So I was really wondering about this, and then I heard also that French ships, military ships, are actually using Linux, real-time Linux, in order to govern the weapon system. So basically, the weapon system are using open source. Do I want my open source project to be used for this kind of stuff? I'm not really sure. So we're in a state where they are using a lot of exception laws to censor internet and get people without legal reason and put them under some kind of anti-terrorist laws. And we can't do so much about that. It's very difficult to fight against that. But we can tell them that we don't appreciate their way of dealing with our society. So our response to exception law is exception licenses that are basically telling the governments that if they do nasty stuff, they might be prevented from using our open source software in the future. So what that means is that EGPL is Exception General Public License. So it's available at www.egpl.info. And when I told Stallman, you know, Richard Stallman, the little guy, is about EGPL, is like, well, come on. Like doing this is like if you were creating pens and pencils and would say to people, oh, but if you're from the military, or if you're killing whales, or if you're abducting people without reason, you can't use this pen. So this is absurd, told me. I'm like, is it? I mean, when we are doing that, we obviously have no power to fight against these people and say, oh, you use my pen in order to decide for killing 1,000 Jews. No, you can't really ask basically the people to be accountable for it. But at least you can point it. You can say, you're infringing my basic rights, my basic property. And the only thing that is acknowledged now is through these very neoliberalist countries, basically the private property, to tell them, you're not allowed to do that. So actually, to them, it's creating a huge problem that are actually putting the social pressure back into play. You can demonstrate in the street with 10,000 of your friends, it's going to do nothing. But if they can't use the software to run their server, maybe it's going to be a bit of a problem. And military and government are very in love with open source because they are less dependent on the US power or influence sphere. So on top of that, we were like, okay, this is a little hack where you can define online your exception. So let's say you created SCTP scan and you want to accept it so that no people in the military industry can use it, especially not the one who do these distributed mines and stuff like that. So you're going to just not define all the people that you want to accept. No, you're going to say, I'm trusting Greenpeace for defining feeds of exception. So you subscribe to the feed, and Greenpeace will be defining new exception all the day, and basically you just sit back and relax and put into your license what you as a developer think is good for the future of our society. And in order to defend that, if I put the foundation in France, it would be easy for the French to say, well, you know, this is not legal for whatever legal intricacies. Well, this license is not valid. So we actually put that foundation in China. Why is that? Because China is trying to introduce a copyright legislation. And the US and Europe are telling to China, you're joking us. You've been copying our product for tens of years. We are not going to agree with signing your copyright law. Well, China is just right now answering, well, you are not respecting our copyright license also, because look, there are projects that you have been using. So it's much more important for France when China, a major commercial partner, is telling them, you're not respecting our licenses, because actually EGPL is one of their licenses, than if I go to France and say, hey, well, you're not respecting my license. So it's very interesting how you can use geostrategical kind of relationship in order to tell them, well, here is the hot potato, now play with it. Well, we've been doing a few little projects. I maybe won't go too much in detail about the basically RT kind of things that we've been doing too. We organized some kind of hacker conference. It's called the Hackerspaces Fest. So there were the first one was in 2008, and it's usually 24 hours operation where conferences and workshops during the day and parties and concerts during the night. It's going to be in November or December 2010 in Istanbul with the Transact meeting, and the question will be data and money is flowing freely between countries, why not people? So that will be the next thing. Now, how to build it? When we built, when the decision to build actually Temp Lab was coming from a lot of French guys meeting in Chaos Computer Camp in Berlin, 2007. And we met and we're like, come on, we have to have one. It's really cool places in Berlin, we really want to do something. And then we started to think about it and say, yeah, we go back to France and we find a place and we do it. And we went back to France and did not find a place, and the project was not really happening. And there's the guy who finds a place and says, well, we have a place, it's free, but it's kind of squatted. So we may be evicted from the place because at any time. And because the owner has an understanding, he likes what we do, it's being an art cooperative for a long time, but it may end from the day to the other. So lots of, like half of the original people said, oh no, we are not going there. And half of the people said, yeah, let's do it. So we went for it, and it's been temporary now for nearly 2 years. So the thing is, the first thing, get it somewhere, cheap preferably, but anywhere and now. It's something that requires only a little space at the beginning, even in someone's basement or something like that. Well, obviously what you need is ADSL access or something like that. Don't rely too much on neighbor Wi-Fi. It's not something that I would advise, especially for a hackerspace, because then people will come for you in there. And recycle as much as you can. We recycle nearly everything that we have in the lab. Why is that? Is that if it gets broken into, I'm like, yeah, help yourself. Yeah, you come here to rob things that are actually no value. There are 256 megabytes of memory, and it won't even run Windows XP, so yeah, go for it. So by having recycled equipment, basically that means that the corporation, we are putting in the trash old PCs, you can get them and actually provide networking equipment for your hack lab very easily. The idea is also not to want to do, oh, we'll do that project and that project. We started by saying, okay, let's clear the space and we'll see what other projects come first. Here there's a great document which is called Design Pattern for Hackerspaces by CCC, and they give great information about how to structure your organization. But they tell you things like you have to pay, it's very German. So the thing is, you don't have necessarily to pay for your space. If it's in the squat, okay, so be it. You just make it happen. A few principles are very important. Decentralized, so that not a single person has the capability to say yes or no on every project. There has to be some kind of collaborative environment. Then you have to trust each other. You have to trust one that is going to do something, that it's not going to be something stupid. So you have to also inspire trust. And we have only one rule in our hackerspace. Don't make anything that would tend to create another rule. So it's a recursive rule. That means like, okay, if you don't do anything stupid, we shouldn't need any rule. So if you apply that to your thinking all the time, you'll be, okay, maybe I shouldn't do this. And of course, independent. I talked about it. The other thing is to have open days, is to have something where anybody can show up. Because the elitist kind of, wow, we are super cool, we're finding 0 days. Well, you're not maybe going to scream to everybody that you found a 0 day, even if the space is open. So it's better to have new people coming, and it's better for the kind of creativity and relationships. Well, then I would advise to start something very quickly. This is something that is common for you. And basically that's it. Thank you very much. Any question? Actually, I have one question for you. Why isn't there already a hackerspace in Buenos Aires? Anyone wants to answer? No? Okay. The thing is, we're quite ready to come and help. or by whatever infrastructure. We can, if you start a hackerspace, we can provide free hosting on the web. We can, I don't know, ship you funny stuff from France, whatever is needed. But please, if you can do some stuff in there, I think it will help a lot of people, and it will help you on top of it, I guess. So, any question? Nope. Okay, thank you very much.